All right. You guys doing okay? Yeah? All right. Well, if you have a Bible, why don't you go ahead and turn on over. We're going to be here in just a second to Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11. It's in the New Testament of the Bible, and if you're not familiar with your way around your Bible, you can open up to the very front to the table of contents, and the Bible's broken up into Old Testament and New Testament. Hebrews is in the New Testament of the Bible, and so look for New Testament, look for Hebrews. Flip over to Hebrews, find chapter 11, and we are going to be in verse 24 and following here in just a moment. And you can also, if you have a web-enabled device, go to your app store, just search for Bible app, and you'll probably find one from like Life Church or YouVersion. We recommend it. It's free, and it has audio Bibles and reading plans and all kinds of things that you can get. It even has like video devotionals and things like that. It's so you can keep up on stuff. It'll give you alerts because if you're forgetful like me, and you wake up in the morning and go, I don't really want to work out or read my Bible or do anything, it'll pop up a little alert that says, hey, lazy tail, read your Bible. I don't think it actually says lazy tail, but it says something along those lines like, hey, we're reminding you to read your Bible. It's like, oh, awesome. And so you can download that. And while you guys are flipping over there to Hebrews chapter 11, just want to remind you guys that we have Christmas services next week. Everybody's excited about Christmas services? Yeah? All right. So we have services Saturday night, 5:30 and 7, Sunday night, 5:30 and 7. Do we have Sunday morning service here? No, if you show up at 11 a.m., and we've already established you guys aren't early risers, if you show up at 11 a.m., there will be no one here. You'll be like, did I sleep that long? No, but we won't have services here because we have them Saturday night and Sunday night. But if you want to go, I'd love to go to church in my PJs. You could stay at home. And maybe you're traveling, you'll be out of town. The services that are happening Saturday night, we're going to have a video of that that'll be on the main page. So you could say, hey, I'll watch that in the morning, and then I'm going to bring my friends that night. It's so all the services are identical. We can't wait to have you guys here during the weekend. And on the 28th, because you guys are traveling and we want to honor our staff and all our volunteers that just do so much work throughout the year, 28th, nothing's going on. You might be like, for real? Like you're telling us not to go to church on the 28th? Sure, sleep in. Sleep till noon. You've never done that. You haven't done that since like college, all right? So do that now. Sleep till noon. Hang out. If the kids wake you up, say, I don't really want to take care of you right now. I'm going back to sleep. And tell them just go do something. Just don't kill anyone or burn down the house and go back to sleep and do your thing. And so, man, we just want to have a good time next weekend. It's going to be awesome. And so you're holding over in Hebrews chapter 11. You guys ready? Yeah, some of you guys are. Some of you fell asleep between now and then. Everybody's like, yeah, and falling asleep. All right, so here we go. Hebrews chapter 11, starting in verse 24. If you don't have a Bible, it'll be here on the screen. And we're talking about this guy named Moses today. And we're going to be looking at his story. And basically, to kind of catch you up to speed before we jump in here, Moses, his mother, during that time, they were actually going through and systematically getting rid of the next generation because there was a whole entire empire that was looking and going, we do not want these kids of this people group rising up. And so Moses' mother saw that this was happening, puts him in a basket, sends him downriver, hoping someone will get him and free him and he'll be fine. And it's actually Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, his daughter finds Moses. And so we kind of follow along and he grows up in their household and we catch up with he's much older. And now we get into this part where they're talking about the life of Moses, which is awesome that a movie's coming out. It probably will have nothing remotely close to what the Bible says. But I would say this, just like we talked about with the Noah movie, totally go see it because I think any time that the Bible has brought to life in some way, shape, and form, it's a great way to have a dialogue. I know like when the Noah movie came out, there were like rock monsters in it and stuff. I was like, oh, I never read that in the Bible. But it was weird, but it was a great chance to be able to talk about stuff. And so we always encourage people, like if you have a relationship with God and you claim faith, don't be that person that's like, it's not exactly the Bible, rah, rah, rah on Facebook. Don't do that mess, all right? Or if at least you do, don't tag yourself that you also come to Forefront Church because we don't want to be like that. We want to be able to embrace culture and say, what can culture help open up a dialogue with? And so I'm pumped that the movie's coming out and Christian Bale's awesome. So here we go. Yeah, somebody's excited about him. All right. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 24. Here we go. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Verse 25, he chose to be mistreated along with the people of God, the original people that he was, not Egyptian, but with the Israelites, rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Basically, the lifestyle that the people of Egypt were living, this lifestyle that God did not deem as appropriate. Verse 26, he regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as greater value than the treasures of Egypt, all the amazing things that were there, because he was looking ahead to his what? His reward. Verse 27, by faith, he left Egypt. He could have done a lot of things. He said, not fearing the king's anger, because he could have been killed, jailed for the rest of his life. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. It's basically saying that Moses was chasing after, and later what we'll talk about is he was chasing after what is eternal rather than what is temporary. And we're going to take a look today at what it looks like to chase after, to embrace, to really take hold of the hope that God has for you and I. Before we do that, I want to pray. Why don't you pray with me? God, I thank you that we get the chance to follow you, that we get the chance to learn through your word, not a story about us, but a story about you, that we get to look at and learn and read and say, God, what are you trying to tell us in how we follow you, how we honor you, and what step do we need to take, each one of us, maybe asking ourselves personally, what step do I need to take so that I can have a closer relationship with you? Maybe that's trust. Maybe that's faith for the first time. Maybe it's just saying, man, I actually believe some of this. I don't know it all yet, but God, I want to trust in this. God, we thank you that we get to learn together. It's through your Son we pray. Amen. Now, show of hands, how many of you have ever had, I guess I'll call it the opportunity to be in charge of feeding a small child? Show of hands. All right, so for those of you guys who didn't raise your hands, count yourself blessed, okay? Because it's a challenge. Now, when they're younger, it's a little bit easier because they don't have a lot of say, all right? They don't move. They just kind of sit there, and so you're like, oh, you're crying? Bottle. There you go. Like, can't hold it by themselves, obviously, at first. You got to do that unless you use duct tape, and I wouldn't recommend that. But, you feed them, and then sometimes, and it can even be challenging at that age because they won't always take it. We had 2 girls, and so they struggled with that a little bit here and there. But eventually, they get to the place where you get to like, here comes the airplane, whatever, and you get to their mouth, and they're like, and no. And you're like, I never taught you how to speak yet. Why is that the first word that you say? No. And as they get older, it just gets worse. And so those of you guys who are like, oh, we're expecting our first child, it's going to be so awesome, whatever. Aw, that's cute. That's cute. Yeah, we're going to have our third. We've been at this a while now. Yeah, we know. It's not going to be all roses and rainbows. It's going to be amazing. Our kid's going to change the world. No. And so you do this and you're trying to feed them. And as they get older, then it's like you bring the meal there and you set it down. And it's the exchange. Like with our girls, it was like I want the Phineas and Ferb cup. No, I want the Lego cup. I want the Taco Tuesday cup and whatever. And we're moving things around and all this. And we're like, fine. We have it. And we got the plate settled and everything's fine. And we put the food down. And then they just start looking around. You're like, eat your food. I don't want to. No, we made it. And by we, I mean my wife, because I don't know really how to cook unless it's quesadillas. And so other than that, like, we got this together. You're going to eat your food. I don't want to eat. Well, I don't really care what you want. I love you right now, and I'm saying I love you because I have to remind myself I love you. But you're gonna eat your food, and no, I don't want to eat my food. And so they do this whole thing because we know what happens. Why? They're gonna get done. They don't eat any of their food. 10 minutes later, what? I want a snack. I want to eat a cookie. No, you can't have a cookie. There's a cold plate of food over there that has your name written all over it. You could have eaten that. And no, we at least microwave it, okay? We're not that bad at parents, but we'll leave it out for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And then they'll come out, I really want to eat. Oh, you do? Oh, imagine that. The whole time, you're just playing, just building a fort with your food. All right, go back to the fort. Tear down the fort, Godzilla. Eat your food, okay? And so they go over there, but here's the thing. Our youngest one, Roxy, and we have these chairs. We have the just normal wooden chairs that have the slats in them, and she will, because she's smaller, she has to sit on her knees. You may have done this with your kids. They sit on their knees, and they're kind of, so that way they can be up at the table. Well, she'll stick her feet like through the little slats in the back, and then all of a sudden get distracted. She'll be like, my foot, I'm stuck. And it's like the world has ended, okay? And so we're trying to get her foot out, and so I normally will look at my wife, which then she'll look at me and give me the, I did not sit down first, I sat down last, I made all this food, I'm gonna eat my food, in a very nice way. She'll give me the look that like, you better get up and handle it, even though I'm sitting next to the child, because I'm gonna eat my food while it's still mildly warm. And so I'll get up, get her foot out, no sooner as I sit down, all of a sudden, my foot's stuck. I feel like, don't stick your foot in the thing. Eat your food, all right? And it just, you can quit Netflix, you can cancel cable, we'll just put up a webcam, all you guys can watch, you'll be like, dinner time with the Bedells. I promise you, we'll save you a ton of money. It'll be fine. Come over and eat. It'll be an adventure. And so my wife was gone one night, and I put tennis shoes on Roxy because then I knew the feet wouldn't slide through and we'd be good to go. And all I ask her is like, eat your food, do your thing, stay the course, all right? Eat your food, we'll be good, we'll be done, we'll bribe her, hey, we'll give you ice cream. We're those parents, all right? I have no shame in our game. Like, you eat your food, you're gonna get a treat. And so she finally, she'll truck along and do her thing, but she constantly is doing this foot thing. It drives me bonkers. And then I realize that's you and I. God's saying, I have this plan for you. I want you to move along this. And we're like, I totally want to do it. And then we keep going back to stuff, and we get our foot stuck. And we're like, and we're freaking out. And God's going, I know you're there. I told you not to do that. I told you to move this way. We go, yeah, God, I know, but that's really fun. And I keep going back, and I don't understand why. And we feel like we're stuck in this rut, and we keep getting our foot stuck in the chair, the proverbial chair, and we're going, God, why? God, why? And God's going, I told you why if you would just listen to me and stay the course. If you would just follow this path, but you keep falling in this rut, and then you keep blaming me, and I don't quite understand when you're the one that keeps doing it. There's this pastor in L.A., his name's Erwin McManus, fantastic guy. He wrote this book called Wide Awake. Just talks about the journey that we have. Sometimes we walk through life with blinders on instead of opening up our eyes to what God has for us, mainly because, let's admit, we're all kind of a little selfish, and then if we won't admit it, we're also liars. And so, because it's true, we all want what we want when we want it. Just think about it when you go to lunch today, and you ask the person, and then they mess up your order, then you'll think, wow, Jason was right. Or your spouse will remind you on the way to lunch. He shares this, says, I think a lot of us are not on a path. We're in a rut. Maybe he's saying we've stuck our foot in that chair. We've confused comfort with peace, belief with faith, safety with wisdom, wealth with blessing, and just sheerly existing with life. For many of us, our dreams will be buried under the epitaph, I refuse to let go of what I had. For many of us, we're living a life that we think like, oh, I'm kind of trucking along, I'm doing my thing, and we've convinced ourselves that just the chaos and the rut is how it's going to be. And then we hold our fist at the heavens and we blame God, like, God, why would you let this happen? God, look at this pressure that you have me under. Look at this existence that you've given me. And we're so frustrated with God. But here's the truth that we both need to know is that God is not a warden. He is a redeemer. He is one that saves us. He is one that moves. He is one that delivers us from all of the mess that is happening in life. And yet we keep falling in the rut and then blaming him for it. And we wonder why we don't have any hope. Well, because we keep sticking our foot back where it doesn't belong and getting into a life that we don't need, that we were never built for, and we think that somehow that's going to bring us joy. And then when it doesn't, and that when we don't have any hope, we look at God and we go, God, why? This is all of your fault. And he kind of steps back and he looks at each one of us and he's like, well, I wasn't the one that kept sticking my foot in my life back into that. So how can this be my fault? I've never stopped loving you. I've never stopped existing. I had a path for you, and yet you kept getting distracted. And so we ask ourselves, how do I get that hope? How do I live in that hope without going back to the proverbial foot stuck in the chair? How do we get to a place where we grasp that hope and believe in that hope in such a way that our trajectory in life is not going back to what used to be, but living in the promise of what God's given us? It's what we talked about last week, of embracing the promise of God's joy even when things are hard. And we said, don't take out of context like Jason said that everything will be joyful and we won't have hard times. No, that's not true. You probably had a hard time that day on the way back home. That even in God, you will have hard times, but you have a hope and a joy in something more, someone bigger, God himself, and the promise of a future and something brighter. And yet we want to cling to this hope. And if you're taking notes today, if you're writing things down, if you're a big Facebooker, Tweeter, or any of those things, this is your takeaway. If you go home, if you don't get anything else today, I want you to walk away with this, is that infectious hope is ignited. Infectious hope is ignited by incomprehensible sacrifice. That this hope that we want, this hope that we want to cling to that's in God only happens with a sacrifice that we can't even begin to fathom. You might be like, like we want to make sacrifice. I think at our core, they look at God and they go, I want that life. Like there's somebody right now, if you say that person that's just like, man, they're so hopeful. Like they're so joyous. Like I want the life that they have. Before I may not know them at all, and we get into a conversation, I go, I know exactly about their life. Before you ever even share anything, I'd say, I know what they not only acknowledge the sacrifice that needs to happen in their own life, but they know the sacrifice of someone greater that gave them the chance at life and life abundantly. That if you show me somebody that has just this infectious joy, this amazing hope, I'd go, I know why. They know who Jesus is. It happens every single time. And you'd say, well, I want that life. I want to see whatever they have. Man, I want that inside of me. And I'd say, well, it starts with beginning to wrap our minds around the fact that God not only sacrifices for you and I, but that he calls us to a life of denying ourselves. Now, when we hear that, we automatically go, time out. Like, what you mean deny myself? Like, there's things that I like. Like, if I have to deny, Monday Night Football, there's going to be problems, all right? Like, if I have to deny going to the golf course, there's going to be problems. Or if I have to deny Pinterest, all right, there's going to be problems. I know you ladies, you're addicted. Like, right now, you're like, I just need to get on Pinterest. I just need to find, there's a holiday meal coming up. I'm just going to, all right, I totally get it, okay? You're going to end up on the, nailed it, and there's, the picture of the gingerbread man, and then it looks like a zombie attack, all right? We know what's going to happen, all right? So take a breath. Nobody cares about what the cookies look like as long as they taste good. We need to take a chance to go, all right, this sacrifice, this self-denial, and the things that happen, that God's calling me to a life that's not my own. He's calling you and I to a life that we look and we go, that is beautiful. The life that we find that's opened up in these pages and the life that we see in the lives of our people go, man, I want to be able to experience that. And he calls us to sacrifice. It's the very thing that we looked at in the life of Moses as we kind of opened up the message today and began to read. And we're going to look at some of these things that Moses did. And there's going to be two of them. It's very simple. And so if you're like, I can't remember a long list, there's two, okay? You can fit that on a sticky note. And so if you're like, I'm not really a brainiac, neither am I. We try to keep it simple, but something that on Monday morning, when you wake up and you're like, oh gosh, it's almost Christmas. Like you're just waiting on another work week and all of this stuff that you can go, here's what God built me for. Here's how God designed me. And here's what I can strive for today. Not what you're striving for a year from now, what you could strive for tomorrow, in the very moments that you wake up. And so as we look at some of this to really experience this amazing hope, this sacrifice, Moses begins to sacrifice. One of the first things that he does, and we'll check out some of these passages, is that if you want a hope in something greater, you need to abandon the temporary, okay? It's right out of the gate. This is one of the two things. If you want that amazing infectious hope through sacrifice, you need to abandon the temporary. Let's look at some of these passages where Moses jumps in and does this. They'll be here on the screen here in just a second. One of the things that he does, he had this amazing privilege in verse 24, he was a part of an amazing kingdom, like royalty, like you watch the royal family, if you watch the news at all, they were like all over the place. They're like, we're going to basketball games, and like apparently LeBron put his arm around the princess or whatever, and that's a no-no. You don't touch the royal family. That was real big. That's like, he put his arm around her, and she's like, my guards are going to kill you. And so apparently, and if you ever come in contact with him, just look at him from afar. Don't touch him. But he was Moses is a part of that kind of elite family. And it says right off that, he's like, I don't even want to count myself as a part of that. Why? Because he was looking to things that are further. One of the other things that happens in verse 25, he says, the fleeting pleasures that were happening in Egypt, it was balling, all right? You could go and be a part of anything you wanted to, and being a part of the royal family, being a part of Pharaoh's kingdom, he could have anything he wanted. He'd be like, pinball game right now, all right? And they'd be like, yes, sir, and get it and bring it out. He'd be like, I want everyone that's in the kingdom to reenact The Walking Dead in front of me. And they'd be like, all right, cool. Get everybody together, and anything that he wanted, he could have. Absolutely anything. But he knew that it wasn't to his benefit to be able to just at the drop of a hat have everything. He knew that there was something great. He said, you know what? I'm going to deny myself these pleasures that happen in the moment, but it's not going to fulfill what God has for me, because I want to put my life and my hope in things that are eternal, not temporary. There's another passage that leading on in verse 26. He says, you know what? The treasures in Egypt, I'm going to leave them behind. I don't want to deal with any of that. The next verse says he just leaves. Even in the threat of persecution, in the face of death, he was like, I'm going to move forward because he's looking ahead to what matters. And so maybe the question that you need to ask yourself, that I need to ask myself, is what needs to be abandoned? As you walk through, in the holiday season, that is not the question that's asked. It's like, what do you want? What's it, family members and friends? So what you want for Christmas? And usually that's met with, I don't know, or I have everything, or I really need an 80-inch TV, or whatever that you have. I saw people lean in, they're like, actually, I do need that. No, you don't. And so it's this question of what do you want for Christmas? Everything is about us, right? And so the idea of abandoning things is not something that we think about around this time of year. Now, we might think of that once all of our relatives get together and we're like, I could abandon these people. I could go someplace else because they're crazy, all right? But God's looking at you and I saying, what is it in your life that needs to be abandoned? I know for me, I hear that and I wrote this down a few weeks ago and I looked at it, I was like, man, I need to abandon the way that I sometimes talk to my wife that isn't okay. I need to abandon the way that sometimes when my kids are acting crazy and all I want to do is just grab them and shake them with the love of Jesus, that I need to abandon those thoughts and I need to control myself. That the way that I pastor as God moves me is that you need to be better. Maybe for you, God's going, you know what, you need to abandon the way that you ignore your significant other when you come home. Man, it's been a long day. I deserve whatever. Stop. You don't deserve. This existence is but fleeting. You don't deserve. You don't deserve anything. All right? We're like, no, I've earned whatever. No, there's people that need the best of us. And it's not always our job that should have the best of us. Maybe we need to abandon this idea that when we go to work, we give the best and then everyone at home gets the leftovers. Maybe we need to abandon the idea for you of that coworker that when they come around, you're like, oh, Jesus, help me, because I'm going to snap. You get into that, you're ready for that. Maybe you need to abandon that feeling and go, you know what, how can I love that person? How can I care for them? How can I do something for them that turn it around, the very opposite of the feeling that you have? Maybe it's that neighbor, when you're feeling it now. Everybody's coming together for the holidays, and you're already, your anxiety level's through the roof, and you haven't even started the projects of food and who's sleeping where, and why didn't they get a hotel room, and all these things that are going on, and you're like, maybe for you, you're abandoning that idea that you're just not really going to love on that family. You're going to kind of be standoffish until they get out of town, and then you'll have a good attitude. Maybe you need to abandon that feeling and go, you know what, I'm going to love on them now. What does it look like for you to abandon some things in the holiday season? It's the very antithesis of what we're called to do, which is give. Maybe we just need to go, man, maybe I need to release some things so that God can do what only He can do, which is the miraculous in my life. Second thing is that hope embraces the present because of the future. Here's some of the passages that kind of jump into that. Is one of the things that Moses was looking at in Hebrews 11:26 as we look at hope embracing the present because of the future. He says he was looking ahead to his what? Reward. The next passage over, he says, he persevered because he saw him who is invisible. He said, you know what? There's a lot of things that are happening in day to day, but that's not going to set the tone for who I am and what I look forward to. Because there's something greater ahead. That God has a promise for me. There's a hope. There's a future. And so maybe the question for you need to ask is, do I believe that I have a future, a good future lying ahead for me? I talk to people all the time. I'm like, hey, so what does next week look like for you? What is the next month, the year? And they're like just this sigh because what's about to happen is, well, I don't know. Why in the world would I look forward to the future? Underneath your seat, every one of you have a water bottle. I want you to lean underneath there and pick it up. So this is hands-on time during the message. Not me, hands on you, because that'd be creepy and weird, and we don't do that sort of thing. I just want you to hold that water while we talk a little bit. We get the opportunity, when you come into the building, there's a wooden wall there and it has photos of Ta Phin Village in Vietnam. It's where we've gone for the last 8 years, and it's a beautiful place. You'll see the smiles of kids who did not get an Xbox One or any other things, and they're perfectly content, and your kid would be too. Maybe you could just teach them. And they have very little, and they're so happy. And when we first started going over there, some of the things that we started doing there were just teacher conferences and projects and finding out how we could help. And I had the opportunity to go the second year that we were traveling over there and been almost every year since. And met with so many people. And the first year we did a water project where we took the water that was about a couple miles out into the woods and up the mountains because it's in a valley area, and we turned it into beautiful drinking water. And we got the chance to take pictures and build this amazing concrete box that had a sand filter and all these things. And then the next year we decided to bring it to their primary school. And the reason we were doing this is because they had very poor drinking water. And we brought it to the primary school and I had the opportunity to talk with some of the ladies there as we're installing this water system. And everybody there, because of their surnames, it's like Tame, Lame, and Same, but all of them have one version of that name. And so it was like Tame 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Lame 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so Same 3 is having a conversation with us through the translators. And we had the opportunity, this is actually water from Vietnam that was there. I emptied my water bottle and got fresh water, and this is a few years old, so I don't know if I would say to drink it now, but it was very clean in 2009 when I got it. And we had the opportunity to fill it up, and we're talking with her because this here was the water that it was like before we started coming. And so we're having a conversation with Same 3, and I'm asking through the translator, what was it like to have this water instead of this? And what's it like? How does this impact you now? We're just talking and sharing back and forth. So did you ever are you now seeing this, are you upset that you had this for so long? And I love her answer, and I immediately went and wrote it down in my journal that through the translator, she said, we didn't get sad because we knew someone would come. She's about 30, somewhere around there, had a few kids. If this came out of your shower head tomorrow, all of Facebook and all of the water treatment people in your city would know, like immediately. And yet for 30 years, bathed, drank this right here. I didn't get sad because I knew that someone would come. For 30 years, Same 3 had a hope that what was dirty could be made clean, that what was filthy could be renewed. And you and I have a choice. As we walk through this life, as we navigate faith in God and, well, I've heard that it's rituals and rules and regulations. No. Well, I was told by this pastor one time that I didn't have enough faith and so passed away and it's because we didn't know. Well, I met a Christian that was really mean and so that's why I'm not going to follow God. And Christians, okay, but no. Like we can find rotten apples and bad stuff in everything, but we don't use that as an excuse. Oh, so-and-so they're overweight and they don't go to the gym, so I'm not going to go to the gym because there's overweight people. That makes sense. I'm not going to follow God because there's bad people in this world. Okay, doesn't make sense. It's not going to negate the love and the hope and the joy of God because you encountered someone who took what was beautiful and made it awful. Because here's the truth, is God takes what is awful and what is hurting and He makes it pure. He makes it clean. And you may say, you know what, I don't have that kind of mess in my life, and you'd be wrong. We're all wrong. I went for years going, I don't know if I even really believe in God, and all those Jesus people, they're a little crazy. But I started looking at my life, and what was messed up, and I didn't even realize it, God made clean. And God gave me a hope, and for many of you, He's given you a hope, and you've wandered through life, and you made it here to Forefront, and you've come for a week or 2 or 10 or maybe 10 years. Maybe you've already accepted God, and you've been baptized, and you're still sitting going, man, my life feels so murky and messy and nasty, and I don't understand, and I'm shaking my fist at God, and I'd go, He's giving you a hope. He's giving you what's pure. Why are we not clinging to what is beautiful when He's already handed it to us? I know this life is hard. We all have stuff. But Jason, you don't understand my stuff. No, we could stand up and every person could walk up here. You want to hear my stuff? Everybody has it. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody's life is more horrible than the other person. We all have stuff. So at what point do we say God can take the stuff and He can make it clean? I think it's a beautiful story. It's the very hope that every one of us can have. I didn't get sad because I knew one day someone would come. And you're holding that water. You're holding what could be. Maybe you've made that decision and maybe you've been baptized, but you feel real down. I'm sorry. I'm sorry life has handed you a tough hand. That doesn't mean the joy and hope isn't still there. Maybe you haven't made a decision for Christ and you're still like, I'm not too sure about this. I can promise you this, life is still going to be hard whether you follow Jesus or not. Why not have a hope in something more, knowing that you have a promise of something bigger than this existence? Because I could totally be wrong. We could get to the end of this existence and maybe God doesn't exist, okay? Maybe there's no hope, maybe we live this life and we all meet this similar fate. But if what God says is true, and if what God says is absolutely a loving, amazing, you don't have to do anything, no checklist, just simply, I have a gift, I want to make you whole here. If that's true, it changes everything. And so our hope, our joy, is not found in the things here, although we have amazing things that transpire. It's saying, you know what, God? You do what only you can do in my life. Please make me clean. Why don't you pray with me?